All right, so Matt, there was this elderly couple that was sitting in church one Sunday, and the wife turns to the husband and she says, I just let out a really long, silent fart. What should I do? And the husband turns to her and smiles and says, well, dear, I think first you should replace the batteries in your hearing aids.
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I am great.
Awesome.
Weather's getting cool.
Oh, I know.
You can hear the crunch of leaves when you're walking through the yards.
Yeah, I'm so glad that the weather is changing because the fall is my favorite time of year.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
And it reminds me of that joke, you know, in the rest of the world, they call it autumn because it's the change of an equinox and all that. And in the U.S., we call it fall because leaves fall down.
That's right. Oh, yeah. When you say fall, everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
Well, unless you're here.
Yeah, unless you're here. But this episode is dropping on Halloween, or the day before Halloween, I should say. So happy Halloween, everybody.
That's right.
If you're listening to this the morning it drops, then it'll be tomorrow, but I'll tell you happy Halloween anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine that with Halloween being on a Saturday, that everybody is just going to make a big weekend of it.
Sure.
You know,
yep.
whether the kids are going to get to trick or treat where you are or not, you know, there's going to be some celebrations with a weekend Halloween. I mean,
right.
There's just nothing better.
Oh, I know. I love it. Real quick, we want to tell you to go check out the Podbelly Network. Go to podbelly.com and find information on how to record your episode, how to up your episode recording game, or to find other shows that you might not find normally. If you're watching the video, if you're one of our $10 patrons, and actually, I'll probably put this out for everybody since it's a holiday episode. Everybody on Patreon will get to see this episode. So if you're one of our patrons and you're watching this video, you'll not only see Matt's new studio behind him, you'll see mine that I've redone behind me, and you'll also notice that our video is different.
That's right.
You can see the difference. We're going to be using this program for our live stream, which is later today, so that probably won't help you on that. But, you know,
yeah,
we decided we were going to try this out, so let us know what you guys think about this layout for the video and all that. If you're not a patron, go over to patreon.com and search Graveyard Tales, and you can become a patron for $1, $5, or $10. Different perks for each little tier that you join. So go do that if you have not. We want to remind everybody to send in stories for our holiday episode at Christmas. We're doing another listener stories episode. This will be volume 4 of the listener stories episode. So if you got a story, if you've heard a story from a friend of yours, send it in. If you have a favorite fictional story, send it in. Just let us know that it is a fictional story and we'll read it, and send us whatever. We love doing this on the Christmas, the Christmas week there. We try to drop it right around Christmas.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I mean, we get some fantastic stories. So, whatever you got, send it in. This is y'all's episode.
Absolutely.
We're throwing it back to you guys. We're bringing back that tradition of telling ghost stories, around the fire on Christmas Eve. So, scary, weird, odd, you name it, we want it, send it in.
Absolutely. Remember, talking about sending stuff in, we have a voicemail now. You can call us and leave us a voicemail. It's 430-558-1304. You can also text that number. If you have something real quick that you want to text us and tell us, give us a call, shoot us a text. We'd be happy to hear from you. We may use the voicemail on like a bonus episode or something like that. So if you don't want us using it, please specify, don't use this on any episode. I don't want anybody hearing my voice. Just let us know.
I'm in the witness protection program, and I can't.
Right, exactly. Please let us know that so we don't get either one of us in trouble.
We don't want to rat you out.
Yeah, right. Speaking of episodes, go subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not yet. We've been putting up new episodes since the 1st of August. So all of the episodes from August up till now are on there. And we're going back and putting older episodes on there too. So, your favorite episode, if you've got one, may pop up. Makes it easier to share with them on YouTube and all that. And so if you have not subscribed to us on YouTube, go over there and click subscribe. You can click the bell on YouTube and it will notify you when we update with a new episode.
Hit the bell.
Hit the bell.
I hear that all the time because my kids watch YouTube.
Yeah, right. Michael does too. That's where I learned that from. So, that's all I've got. So, Matt, why don't you tell us? What are we talking about tonight, brother?
Okay, so tonight we're going to dig into yet another Native American legend, I guess you would say. It's I don't know. It seems more than just legend.
Yeah.
This was kind of part of their culture, and it's really, really interesting, and you'll see why as we get into it. But tonight, Adam and I are going to discuss. Now, this is one thing we did not discuss before we hit record. How to pronounce this word.
I've heard it two different ways.
So have I. But I think the way I hear it more is going to be with the hard CH. So
yep.
we're going to say Chindi.
Yep.
We are going to discuss the Chindi.
Right.
Now that may be something that you've heard before. I had heard it because there's a pair of authors that write books that I really enjoy, and they have a lot of Native American history and folklore tied into their books. And so I had heard it through that. I had never really dug into what it was. But we really think you're going to enjoy this. It's really interesting. It's really cultural, but it's got some pretty dark undertones.
Yeah, very much so.
Really. So, we've talked about skinwalkers in the past, and we've talked about other Native American traditions and legends and folklore, and this goes right along with it. But, without listening to me babble anymore about what it is, let's actually tell them what it is, Adam. So, let's talk about the Chindi.
All right. So, like Matt said, this is a Native American, I say legend, and I think that kind of puts a fictional spin on it, which we are not trying to do. That's just what it's labeled as, is legend. Does not mean that it is less valid than anything else. But it's from the Navajo culture, and the Chindi is very prominent and very feared in the Navajo culture. And Chindi is actually the Navajo word for ghost. And they say, this is not the nice ghost. This is not something that you want to come in contact with.
This ain't no Casper.
No, it's not. Not at all. Because the Chindi represents everything that was bad about a person. So basically, the Chindi contains all of that person's accumulated sins over their entire lifetime. So if you think about it, some people, they got a pretty mild Chindi. They just got basically a smart aleck jerk roommate Chindi. It's just kind of irritating. It's not real bad.
He's just annoying to have around.
Yeah, exactly.
Leaves the toilet seat up. He won't close the cabinet doors.
Right.
Yeah. Then you got the lights on.
Then you got other people that are like, BTK Chindis that are just, right. Full on murderous, whatever. So it kind of runs the gamut, but it's the Chindi is inherently a negative spirit. It's not
right.
You're not going to run into a good Chindi. And unlike nowadays where people want to have interactions with ghosts and spirits, whether it be their loved ones or not, people go out intentionally seeking ghosts like Matt and I do, a couple of dummies going out intentionally trying to find some ghosts. That was not always the case. Having a ghost appear before you was never really thought of as a good thing back then, even if the ghost was someone that you truly loved, because it meant that something had gone terribly wrong if you're seeing their spirit.
Right. I mean, the whole idea of, the afterlife in a lot of Native American tribes is different than what I think, traditional Western society envisions.
Mm-hmm.
When you start talking about the afterlife, in what I researched, especially in the Navajo tribe, the afterlife is much like it is now. You're just in a different place.
Right.
And, it's not a punishment. It's not a reward. It's just different.
Right.
But, the key is that when someone passes, you want that transition to the afterlife to go smoothly for them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times seeing a spirit, especially of someone that you loved and cared about, like Adam said, was an indicator that maybe that transition did not go the way it was supposed to go.
Right. So let's discuss that, actually, because the belief is that when a person dies, the Chindi will leave their body. Now, among the Navajo death customs is the belief that the Chindi lingers around a dead person's possessions or corpse after they die for a certain period of time. And we've heard that from many other cultures, that there is a belief that your spirit doesn't immediately travel on to the afterlife after you die. There's a 3-day waiting period. There's a week, whatever the case may be, that spirit hangs around prior to moving on. So they believe that as well. So what they do is they will destroy a lot of the belongings of this person. So, they can avoid the ghost hanging around these items. If they don't destroy them, then they will move them and put them away somewhere where they can avoid them and not come in contact with them. Now, after death, the deceased name is never spoken for fear that the Chindi will hear it and come and make one ill. So we'll talk about that illness here shortly. But so after the person dies, they don't do what we do and speak the name of the person quite a bit and talk about them a lot. They avoid that in order to avoid drawing the attention of a Chindi. Now, this says that if the decedent is allowed to pass on outdoors, the Chindi will eventually fade away on its own. Now, they say it usually takes the shape of a dust devil, and we've seen dust devils. If you live anywhere like in Texas, you've probably seen a dust devil. Anywhere in the Southwest, you've seen a dust devil. Matt, I don't know if you ever have or not.
I saw one today, actually.
Oh, really?
But up here it was more of a leaf devil.
Yeah.
And I didn't pause enough to tell if it was a good leaf devil or a bad one. I just drove right through it.
Right. Well, when I was in high school, I can remember I was leaving a friend's house and I stopped at this stop sign and I looked down the street, to make sure there's no oncoming cars, and there wasn't any oncoming cars, but there was a dust devil kind of blowing down the road. It was about 10 feet high or so. And I was...
They call him the breeze.
Yeah, exactly. That was bad. So I was kind of interested in watching it rather than moving on. There was nobody else around. So it comes by, and as it goes over my truck, I had a Ranger back in high school. And as it went over the truck, it's rocking that truck like sideways. And I'm like, oh God, I'm glad that wasn't any worse. It would have knocked over that little Ranger, but it was wild. It was wild. That's the only time I've ever experienced one that close. Normally you see it out in the field as you're driving.
So I guess I didn't realize they were that powerful.
Some of them can be, yeah, because it rocked the hell out of that Ranger.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, what I saw was, just a little whirlwind, but 4 feet, 4 feet of a little column of leaves that's spinning around, and it just blows on, but you drive right through it. Ain't no big deal.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything that would be kind of an in between all this and then like a tornado.
Yeah. This was like a micro tornado. It was wild.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah. Well, like Matt said, he didn't stop to see whether it was a good leaf devil or a bad leaf devil. Well, the way you can tell is, according to legend, if this dust devil spins clockwise, that's a good thing, and it's just a normal dust devil. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
But if the dust devil is spinning counterclockwise, that indicates that the Chindi in that dust devil contained a whole lot of evil. So the Chindi move, and they can move as a dust devil. And if it's spinning counterclockwise, then you got a real bad Chindi on your hands, and you need to move on quickly.
Yeah.
They say avoid it at all cost, because this Chindi will probably harm you if it gets the chance. Now, to go on talking about after a person dies, this goes on to say that if a person dies inside a home, then the Chindi will most likely now have possession of this home because it wasn't able to move on as it would have if they passed outdoors. So the belief is that the home now needs to be abandoned, ritually cleansed, which is an exhaustive process, or destroyed in order to get rid of this possessing spirit. So that sounds a lot like one of the theories of poltergeists that we have, that it takes over the entire dwelling.
Yeah. It's one of those situations where, like Adam said, it's an exhaustive process. I mean, trying to essentially exorcise this home where it would be livable again. In a lot of cases, it's so much trouble and it's so dangerous that they feel like it's better just to go ahead and destroy the home,
right, than
to try to fool with this,
right.
But it's not just homes. Any kind of possession. An example I found was, say the person dies and they had a favorite set of dishes or something. It could possess that, because the Chindi is trying to hang on. That's why they hang around after the death, is they're trying to hang on to that body, to that person.
Right.
And so
into this world.
Yeah. Into this world. And so, a possession that was close, to this person, something that was favorited, that would almost be good enough.
Yeah.
So, they could attach themselves to that.
Right. And think about it when people say they want to contact a loved one or something like that in a seance, a lot of times they will bring a possession of that person's to the seance in order to make it easier for the spirit to come through, because it has an attachment to that possession. a lot of people in the Navajo culture believe that a Chindi can actually be used by Navajo witches or medicine men to inflict what is called ghost sickness upon others. Now, they do this by planting a piece of the corpse or powder from the corpse's bone on a person's body. If they do this, then it can cause fever, exhaustion, or a feeling of being suffocated, even drowning. So they make like a bone powder or a corpse powder. And I think we've discussed this during our voodoo episode where we talked about corpse powder and stuff. But the medicine men can make a powder or just a piece of that. And if they want to harm you, then they can place this, this ghost powder in your food and you eat it. And then you have the ghost sickness, or they can just plant it on you, like on your clothes or on jewelry or something like that. And then it can cause ghost sickness as well. Let's look at ghost sickness in the Navajo tradition so that we can kind of talk about that a little bit, understand that a little bit more. Now, this is from Ancient Origins and unexplainable.net. Ghost sickness is the belief that ghosts are able to cause a living person to fall ill. Now, according to the Navajos, as well as certain other Native American cultures, ghost sickness is caused by a spirit of the dead that's attaching itself to a living person, just like we talked about, or with connecting a person's living thoughts with the thoughts and behaviors of the dead. So that would require some kind of ritual in order to connect those thoughts. Now, those affected by the ghost sickness were said to first associate their experiences with a pervasive and all-encompassing sense of fear, a fear that followed them wherever they went. This was soon followed by nightmares, where the spirits of the dead contacted the living and conveyed messages to them, even hearkening the living to join them in the mysterious world of the dead. That's creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. Come to me.
Yeah. I mean, I can't, I would not want to go through that, where you've got something beckoning you to die and come to the other side. That's got to be terrifying.
But again, I mean, we've heard this same type of story with other spirits, poltergeists in particular, where they bring about this feeling of dread. I don't want to be alive anymore. People talk about feeling pulled, in an evil direction, just by being around, a house that's, been infested with a poltergeist, demonic possession. We also hear, that feelings of dread or even, self-harm, things like that, so this is right in line with those kind of things as well.
It is. They say other feelings that soon followed included a sense of dread, and a feverish, almost catatonic despondency, as though the sufferer was no longer living in the world of the living, soon to be followed by hallucinations. So they kind of go into this catatonic state where they seem to be dead even though they're not. If you can hear that, sorry, Henry has decided he's going to start barking during this segment.
Yeah, I heard him earlier.
Yeah, he did it earlier. I was hoping he would have gone away or that he would have been locked downstairs or something, but oh well.
But it's like Boone knows that I'm out here.
Mm-hmm.
And, they normally try to keep him in the house when I'm out here, because when he knows, he'll come and he'll scratch on the door down here. Now,
yep.
You see how dark I keep the graveyard now.
Mm-hmm.
When you start hearing stuff going on downstairs, scratching and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like, what the hell's going on down there?
Yeah.
But he can also run at full speed and hit the door too.
Right.
So that it sounds like something is wham.
Yeah. You hope it's just Matt's dog and not somebody trying to break in.
A 90-pound bulldog hitting a door at full speed.
Yeah. So this goes on to say that it's also believed that ghost sickness can even result in death. So as the soul of the affected person could be carried by the ghost into the realm of the dead. So not only does it make you feel like you're dead or feel like you're going to die, but it actually could kill you if it's strong enough or if you give into it. Now, the Navajos believe that ghost sickness is caused by a person communicating with the dead or by connecting the thoughts of a living person with those of the deceased. Now, in a case mentioned, for example, a Navajo woman develops nightmares about her father following his death from a ruptured appendix. Now, the woman's mother felt that her daughter was somehow connected with her husband's death and that she was plagued by the malignant influence of his spirit. So remember, even though that's his father, it's in this sense, the Chindi is not good. It's all the bad that was in her father. So it would not, it wouldn't be nice to her in that sense.
Yeah, and that's another thing. As researching this, it doesn't appear that, the Chindi is necessarily that person just evil. It's just the manifestation of all the evil, all the sins is what I read, which, that's really throwing a Christian reference on a Native American culture.
Well, that's what we talked about in the beginning. It said sin too. Yeah,
I think it gives you it puts you in the right mindset of what this thing is actually created by.
Right.
And, as Adam mentioned at the top of the show, the worse the deeds during life, the more evil the Chindi could be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that person. So just because it was her father doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to have some kind of tie to her emotionally. This is just essentially, a wad of evil that, has been attached to her.
Right. And the story goes on to say that several years later, the woman had a child, and it was after giving birth that she was stricken with the ghost sickness. So she was plagued by it for quite a while, but didn't actually become ill with ghost sickness until after her child was born. Now, some of the symptoms experienced by the woman included irritability, decreased interest in daily activities, and inability to relate well to her husband. Now, the woman's ghost sickness was treated using an approach that addressed both the traditional causes of the illness as well as the biomedical ones that she was facing. This says, for instance, a traditional Navajo ceremony was conducted to treat the nightmares, and diagnostic measures were taken to determine if her postpartum depression was caused by other endocrinological problems or not. Good Lord. I did that just fine earlier today, and then the mic comes on and my tongue goes blah, 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 blah.
Okay. I've never had to write that word in that form before.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen it done like that, so I was like, I'm going to practice this. And it didn't help me at all.
Well, everybody knows we practice stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter when you get here.
I think that's half the reason that people listen to us is to hear what we're going to screw up next. So they took what I would consider as probably the best approach to it. They not only did the traditional Navajo treatments, but they also looked at it medically. So they weren't missing one thing or something else. They covered the gamut there.
Yeah, they weren't going, oh, this looks like a Chindi, when it was really,
postpartum.
A treatable postpartum depression in this case.
Right. Now, this goes on to say that ordinarily the sickness was combated with rituals, but in 1881, many of these rituals were banned. So as a result, the surviving members found themselves using Western psychology, still in its infancy, in the hopes of exorcising the ghost sickness that swept through. So, Western psychology hadn't been developed fully yet, and they banned the traditional rituals for some reason. So they were having to try to use other means. But this says that many of the ritual's elements were designed with both the pre-Jungian symbols surrounding grief and the more supernatural elements of the tribe's respective traditions in mind. So adapted for nowadays. But one of the rituals that I found when looking this up that they said was used to ward off a Chindi was a ritual called Enemy Way. Now, this says that this is a traditional Navajo ceremony that was used to counter the effects of the Chindi. The 3-day ceremony, which includes dance, sand painting, and ritual chanting, involves the summoning of Monster Slayer, which is a powerful figure in Navajo mythology, and there's usually a reenactment of a battle. So it would have been a long, involved process for the ritual to try to battle a Chindi or get rid of a Chindi.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, not an easy thing to do.
No, not at all.
And a lot of the research that we did, you will see that when a Chindi is set against you, there's very little you can do.
Right.
It does not stop. I mean, it comes after you. It will continue until the task that was set before it is completed.
Very much like some of the stories of Wendigo that we've read about and talked about, is that it is, it's continuous and it's going to track you down no matter what.
Yeah. Once you've been targeted, there's very little chance of escape.
Right.
And so we're gonna kind of get into that. You know, what happens if you were targeted, what you could do about it, and how you could protect yourself against being targeted by a Chindi.
Right.
So getting into this, you know, we've talked a bit about the dust devils and how to identify a Chindi. But there's some other things that a Chindi can do that are very similar to the Skinwalker. Mm-hmm. They're shapeshifters. Say that shapeshift.
I'll say shapeshifters for you if you say that other word for me.
I almost said something else.
Well, if you do,
shift her.
Yeah, if you do, I've got a beep button that I can pull out if I need to. So,
but now that other thing would be kind of cool, you know.
Yep. You know, actually, Matt, during the lockdowns and stuff, quarantine, I got so bored that I was actually trying to poop different shapes. I was on my way to doing a perfect triangle, but I couldn't get it.
You know, I've got the cigar down pat.
That's for amateurs, Matt.
That's beginner stuff right there, right?
Yeah.
But we digress.
All the time. So,
according to a Navajo artist, David Little Turtle, a Chindi, man, I did it. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, we're going to say Chindi tonight. And then I said Chindi. And I can't say shapeshifter. It's been a rough night.
Yeah, I understand.
But according to David Little Turtle, a Chindi can assume any shape, or as he said more accurately, it can inhabit any living thing.
Right,
now,
yeah.
You know, any traditional Navajo has at least one Chindi story that they can tell, according to Little Turtle. He said they most often will tell you about coming home at night and seeing a coyote walking on its hind legs. Now, he says that if you see a coyote or a wolf walking upright like a human, you immediately think werewolf. I mean, that's what I would think. But in the Navajo tradition, it's most likely a Chindi. Now, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say keep that, two things. Keep that in mind, the bipedal canid in mind. as we move on throughout some episodes in the near future. And also, Matt, that we could do probably 3 whole episodes on bipedal canids.
Oh, yeah.
From everything that I have researched, especially here lately, we could do this forever because that is a very prevalent, I don't know, iconography or whatever you want to say. That is a cryptid that is very prevalent throughout the Americas. So it would make sense that the Navajo from time immemorial would know about bipedal canids or, have seen them or whatever and have their own legend about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is very common. And we do see a lot of stories about, the bipedal canid. So yeah, keep that in mind. We got some more stuff coming up about that.
Some cool stuff.
But another way to identify a Chindi is by its eyes. And it says they will appear dead. Hey, that's good. Hey, there's that coyote walking upright. He's got dead eyes.
Yeah, look at that.
Okay, you got close enough to it to see its eyes.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd keep moving.
But Little Turtle says that if your headlights hit the animal's eyes and they don't reflect the light, then you know it's a Chindi. So that's how he's describing dead eyes. You know how animals will have the eye shine at night when a bright light hits them and they're, you see that reflection. You won't see that if the animal is actually a Chindi in disguise.
And that's odd for any animal besides like great apes, like ourselves or whatever. We don't have the eye shine, but every other animal that's walking around at night will have that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have zero eye shine because I am virtually blind in the dark.
Night blind.
But he says Chindis tend to walk out of sight. They stay to, remote areas. They walk along lonely roads waiting for travelers. And it doesn't matter if the travelers are on foot or in a car. The Chindi will wait until the moment is right and cross the path of the traveler just out of sight, trotting across the road on its hind legs. And this is how the Chindi will mark its victim. Now, once a Chindi crosses your path, it will follow you for weeks. It stalks its victims by creeping just out of sight and circling. Now, you would normally never know it was stalking you, except for maybe an occasional twig snap or you catch a movement out of the corner of your eye in the shadows. So it's really hard to know if a Chindi has attached itself to you and is stalking you.
That almost makes it so much worse.
Yeah. Now, some will say that a Chindi is a type of skinwalker, but and we saw a lot of these same traits when we talked about skinwalkers.
Mm-hmm. It
can look like a normal coyote or even a person. Again, the only way to really be able to tell is by its eyes. And a Chindi doesn't maul or eat its victims. So it says after days or weeks of stalking, it will lie in wait somewhere until the victim looks into its eyes. So see, now that's even worse. See, now you're thinking, all right, I'm getting stalked by a Chindi. I've seen this thing and I think it's after me, but I can't tell if that's what it is. I need to look in its eyes. Well, that's what it wants you to do because that's how it gets you. You want to look in my eyes and see if I'm a Chindi. Bang, I got you.
Yep.
So
bunch of sneaky jerks.
It goes on to say that Chindis are very patient. They will wait in a location for hours just for the right time for the victim to just glance into its eyes. But when that happens, the victim's spirit is totally consumed. And the description is that something else is left behind. So maybe, a zombie-like state.
Yeah.
You know, you're essentially a body without a spirit,
Mm-hmm.
after you have been consumed by a Chindi.
So you could theoretically go through the motions of being there, but you're not really alive.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, someone might notice the small clues that they're being stalked by a Chindi. The twig snapping or that bit of movement. But as we talked about earlier, it's not something that can be easily avoided once you've been targeted.
Right.
If someone tries to escape the Chindi by just staying indoors at night, the Chindi will just stare in through a window until the victim happens to look out. Now, they say that this is the preferred method of the Chindi. It's a sneaky thing,
Mm-hmm.
It'll wait outside of a window at night, covered just enough in the shadow that it wouldn't be noticed until someone looks directly at it. So imagine you get up at night and you walking through, the living room and you go, I get this something outside, and you want to take a peek. And it just, sometimes you forget.
Yep.
And you just go, what's outside? Bam.
Yeah.
A lot of bam in this episode. These Chindis, man, they love the bam.
Yeah, Chindis are possessed with the spirit of Emerald Lagasse.
Well, either that or going to be like Guy Fieri, and they're going to take you to Flavortown.
Yeah, I'd rather have Emerald. I don't want God taking me to anything flavorful. That's
and then when you're attacked by Chindi, you wind up smelling like garlic. That was bad. So they are sneaky little things. Most people, you have to fight that urge. But as we talked about, unless you are just in tune or you have some reason to believe that you might be stalked by a Chindi, you probably won't even know until it's too late.
Yeah.
So if you won't know, should you be concerned? Should you be worried about a Chindi coming after you?
Always.
Every day.
Every second of every day.
All the windows in my house are painted black.
Yep. Those people that used to put tinfoil in their windows? I've done that.
Yeah.
And it's only because of the Chindi.
Got theater curtains on everything.
Yep.
But it depends on your attitude toward Mother Earth and whether or not you have a good heart. So if you're generally a good person and you have a good spirit and are kind, chances are a Chindi is not going to target you.
Right.
But if a Chindi is set against you, the only way you can stop it is to draw a medicine circle around you and sing or say a prayer for protection. Now, again, from David Little Turtle, he says, it doesn't need to be a Navajo chant. Sing or say aloud any prayer you know. The important thing is your attitude. If the Chindi sees that you have a good heart, the evil energy will boomerang and will return to the one that set it upon you. So
that sounds like other things we've talked about with protection against spirits, is that it doesn't matter the words, it doesn't matter the religion, it just matters your
intent,
the meaning that the meaning and the intent that you put behind it is the main thing.
Right. Words are powerful, but the intent behind the words is what gives them that power.
Exactly.
We discussed this when we talked about curses.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the intent. So if you're doing these things with a pure heart, and in good faith, then you can repel that power of a Chindi and protect yourself. But what if you don't know how to draw a medicine circle for protection? What if you panic and you can't think of a prayer? Could you stop a Chindi with a silver bullet? Well, David Little Turtle says that no bullet can stop a Chindi. And if you kill the host animal, the Chindi will simply enter another animal and another
right.
and another until it has worked its vengeance against you. And that's a quote from David Little Turtle.
Can you imagine if you killed it and the only thing near it was a butterfly, and now you're being harassed by this jerk butterfly, and like it keeps coming up in your face, and what's going on? Oh, it's a Chindi fly. That's all right.
You keep a lot of snails with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill it, and here's a snail.
Yeah, just throw the snail at it real quick.
Now I'm gonna walk away.
Yeah, catch me, jerk.
A slug. Come on, slug.
Yeah.
No, don't stop that slug. That's
put a cup over
Chindi
top
slug.
of it. Yeah, right. That would suck.
Now, a talisman to protect yourself against the Chindi can be made, and they are typically made from ghost beads, which are made from cedar berries, and they are supposed to protect you from evil spirits. Now, this is kind of cool. The beads are made by allowing ants to eat away the inside of the berry, leaving only the shell, which is then punched through on the other end and strung together on necklaces and bracelets.
That is really cool because basically the ants do all the work for you and already bore one hole.
That's right.
So,
You've already got a hole. You just got to poke one on the other side. Now, here's another cool thing, and I showed this to Adam yesterday. I have in my possession some Navajo ghost beads, and that's exactly how they came to me. Navajo ghost beads, cedar, mine say cedar juniper berries.
I got to get me some.
The only thing is when I got them, they were much smaller than I thought they were going to be. I guess I have no idea how big a juniper berry is.
Eensy weensy.
Yeah, they're tiny. And so when I got them, Amanda's like, well, these are a lot smaller than I thought. I was like, yeah, I know, but it's still cool that we got them.
That's why when you see the bracelets or the necklaces, most of the time it's one ghost bead and then several other like turquoise beads and then one ghost bead and then several other beads. It's because you'd have to like steal them from 40 trees to get an entire necklace of them. So
now you mentioned turquoise. Now turquoise is often used to help keep the Chindi at bay in combination with the ghost beads. Now turquoise has unique healing properties. And so that's why you see it in a lot of Native American jewelry, is because it does have healing properties. It does have powers of protection. So when you combine that with the ghost beads, then you've got a pretty powerful talisman. And so I've got some turquoise beads on the way too.
Nice.
So I'm gonna make one of these and see how it turns out and. Who knows? You may see me in Gatlinburg in a few years, just sitting around making some Native American jewelry or something.
There you go. You need to make me a necklace while you're at it.
Yeah, I got to make Adam a necklace. Can you imagine that?
He can practice. Yeah.
Adam wearing this big, so I got 16 millimeter turquoise beads. About this.
They're like that big.
like a big giant marble. It's gonna look like he was at Mardi Gras. As we said, most traditional Navajos have some type of story about a Chindi. Either it was told to them by their parents or their grandparents, or it was, a family story that was passed down. But there just aren't a lot out there of people just saying, hey, here's my Chindi story.
Right.
A lot of skinwalker stories, and some of them when you read them, you're like, this may not be skinwalker, or maybe Chindi.
Yeah.
But there is one really, really famous one, and it is very well documented. And so I researched this story, and with our research assistant Jeff, we managed to put together a version of this story that it's incredible. So we're going to go into the story. Now, as I said, this is the most famous account and it is of the Long Salt family. Now, in the August-September 1967 issue of the magazine Frontier Times, John R. Winslow wrote about his encounter in 1925 with a young girl named Alice Longsalt. Now, in the magazine, she described the reason for the Longsalt's family's demise. Now, she believed that after two members of the tribe deceived a blind medicine man, he sent a Chindi to destroy the Longsalt family. Now, each member of the family was stricken with an incurable illness and eventually died. The family's ordeal started in 1825, 100 years before Winslow's discussion with Alice.
Yeah.
Now, one member became ill when he couldn't sleep because he was having nightmares. Very similar to the story that Adam told us earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The angry spirit of a man whom he had killed was tormenting him because he was slain before he could sing his death song. The man's brother told him that he should let it go, for he had killed this man in a fair fight, recognized by the tribe, so it was not his fault. So in this situation, I mean, essentially like a trial, he was justified by the tribe in killing this other man, but was still having these nightmares. So the man said he thought he was going to die if something wasn't done to appease the troubled spirit. So the Longsalt family sought help from an old blind priest from the Segi country. Now, this priest had a 3-day bajin, or a sing, over this brother that was being tormented by the spirit. Now, on the final day, the man he was better. He just let out a sigh and said, I'm better. And, you know, he told the priest how grateful he was, and this troubled spirit had departed and he could sleep in peace. Now, the old priest requested as payment that the Longsalts butcher 5 sheep for him. And, you know, this was a fair request. You know, he had done this man a service. He had saved his life.
Yep. Payment.
And the Longsalt clan was very powerful, and there were over 100. It says the clan numbered in the hundreds.
Oh, wow.
So there were plenty of them to go around, and they had a lot of sheep. So taking 5 of them as payment for saving one of their lives wasn't an unreasonable request.
Yeah, not that big a deal.
But the 2 Longsalt men who were assigned to slaughter these sheep, they had another plan.
Oh, geez.
So the old priest's village was a pretty long way from the flocks. So taking a shortcut, they butchered 5 wild antelope instead. Now, they thought the priest is blind. He's not going to know the difference. I don't know. Maybe you know by taste. Yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
You know,
in tasting several different wild game.
Yeah.
If you're expecting deer and you get boar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're gonna know. Yeah. You know. Hey, it still tastes like antelope to me.
Yeah. It's like when you pick up your drink and you're expecting Coke and you get orange juice or something. Shock.
That's the worst.
Yeah. That I would think if you're blind, your other senses kind of are heightened. So his sense of taste is probably a little better, and he noticed probably right away, I would assume.
That's right. So the older Longsalt that presented the 5 carcasses to the priest was unaware that antelope had been substituted for the sheep. So here he is presenting this payment to the priest in good faith that he's giving him what he says he's giving him. The 2 men had cut off the heads and the legs at the knees, so he was deceived too.
Yeah.
So this brought about what this brought about what became known as the Long Salt Curse. So a few weeks after the payment, an older member of the clan died suddenly, even though he had not been sick. And he was a young, strong man and had no reason to just up and die. So as the Long Salt members and his young wife mourned the death, they began to feel that something wasn't exactly right. And pretty soon they started to notice a pattern. Every few weeks, another member would become ill, begin to waste away, and eventually die. And it became obvious to the older, wiser members that a Chindi had been set against them, but they had no idea why.
Yeah.
The two men who had substituted the antelope finally came clean and confessed what they had done. The family council agreed that they must ask the old priest how they could rectify this situation.
I know how. You go beat them senseless in front of the guy. You're like, look, it's their fault, and I'll whoop their butts for you. But
that's right. And what's really unique about this is they had members of the tribe dying, not the two that did the old switcheroo.
Right.
So their clan was paying the price for their misdeed.
Yep.
So can you
be
imagine?
Honest, people?
Yeah.
Be honest.
That's right. If someone asks you for sheep, then give them sheep, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
Especially if they saved your life from an evil spirit.
No joke.
So the priest told them that he had become angry when he discovered the deception, and he acknowledged that he had set a Chindi against them, and that Chindi's task was to eliminate them one by one. Yeah. So they explained that they had not meant to cheat him. What? Sounds like they really meant it. They were like,
yeah,
we don't want to go all the way over there where the sheep are, but here's some antelope. They're lazy cheaters.
And to me, I wouldn't even think that was lazy, because you got to get a wild antelope versus some sheep. Okay, you got to walk a little further to get to the sheep, but they're going to be easier to catch than these wild antelope.
And sheep,
these are just stupid cheaters is what that is.
Sheep that you own.
Exactly.
They're your sheep. You could probably call them and they'd come.
I was going to say, shake a bucket of corn and they'll come to you.
That's right. How hard could that be? It must have been a really long way.
Must have been. Or they're really stupid.
Now, the old priest believed that they were sincere, but he warned them that to uphold his reputation, he would have to appease the spirit world. The Long Salts told the priest that they would pay whatever the price, and the priest sent them away, telling them he was tired and he needed to figure out what a proper compensation would be. And he told them to come back in 10 days. Now, unfortunately, when the Long Salts returned, they were told that the old priest had died. And they asked the priest's son if he knew if his father had called off the curse before he died. But to their dismay, they were not able to determine if the curse had been lifted. And by the time they got back home, several members of the Long Salt clan were sick and dying. So this evil spirit pursued and exacted its revenge on the Long Salts for over 100 years. And when Winslow met Alice Long Salt, she was the last surviving member of the clan. Now, strangely enough, anyone marrying into the family met the same fate. So you didn't even have to be a blood Long Salt. Alice's mother died when she was seven, and she was attending the Tuba City boarding school at the Indian Agency. Alice's father wasted away to skin and bones, dying 2 years later. Now, the remaining 3 Long Salts, Alice's 2 uncles and aunt, were sick, crippled, and essentially helpless. Now, friends cared for them, watching them just fade away before their eyes. Now, a Navajo man named Hosteen Behegad. What about that one?
Well done.
You should see how it's spelled. I'm probably nowhere near the correct pronunciation, but it's good. So, Mr.
Now
Hosteen.
say endocrinological.
I got to go back to writing these things out phonetically, but there was no way I could find out how this was pronounced. So. But Mr. Hosteen, he adopted Alice, and he swore to look after her and protect her from the Chindi's mission. So he kept them moving. He kept them moving around. He never stayed in any one place for very long. And his hope was that the spirit would not be able to find them. But in the winter of 1928, still wandering around, a blizzard hit the hogan they were staying in 3 miles from the trading post at Red Mesa. And Alice was found dead the next morning. So the final revenge had been exacted, and the curse was complete. And so that's the story of the Long Salt family. And like we said at the beginning, it was documented in a magazine, back in 1967, where Winslow
very popular, very well documented.
Yes, absolutely. And when you begin to research the Chindi, you're going to find this story. It's some version of it. Sometimes it's very short. But you will find the story of the Long Salt curse, and the way that a Chindi was used to essentially massacre their family over a period of 100 years.
Yeah.
This is really one of those stories where you want to say, okay, this really does sound like folklore. It sounds like stories that you pass down, culturally, to explain this is why we do this. This is why we don't speak the name of the dead. This is why, the ceremonial death happens outside. This is why they need to be able to sing their death song so that
don't substitute antelope for sheep.
Yeah, that's right. But this is the kind of story. But when you start getting into these traditions and you start looking a little bit deeper, then you find that these are more than just stories. These are beliefs,
right?
Beliefs that guide how things are done in the Navajo tribe. And you don't just do things ceremonial because you got a really good story that explains why you do it. You've got to have a belief there.
Mm-hmm.
There's something a belief that's been passed down from generation to generation that says you do it this way, or there is consequences.
Right.
So you do it this way, and you do it this way every time, or there's consequences for you, or there could be consequences in your loved one's transition to the afterlife not being what it needs to be. So, I mean, it really makes you stop and say, I don't know. I mean, I want to believe in this. I want to say, this is something that is done, and it's still a possibility today. And I mean, it's no different to me than any other magical rite or anything that we talk about, or any other type of spirit that we've talked about. Just because it may not be as widely known around the world as a poltergeist is, doesn't mean that it's any less legitimate. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So I kind of stick to the thought that, this is a thing. This does happen. There are Chindi in the world. Chindi can be created, and I forgot what other, it may have been Navajo or Cherokee. I can't remember which one, but I was reading that they believe not just the Chindi, but any type of spirit is the bad, and all of your good deeds move on to the afterlife.
Right.
All the good parts of you move on. So the better person that you are, the less there is that hangs around here.
Right.
So the more evil you are, the more of you that will stay on this planet. And, in a lot of ways, I tend to believe that,
I do too. And what makes this story truly terrifying is the fact that we're talking about a spirit that can be directed.
Mm-hmm. Weaponized, basically.
Yeah. What a great term. Weaponized. Used as a form of vengeance, against another, and in the Long Salt's case, an entire family.
Yeah. That's wild.
To wipe them out. And that, I think, makes it horrifying. The idea that not only that a spirit like this would exist in this world, but that there are people that would know how to do that could harness that type of energy and set it against somebody. But again, it's not something that's done in vain. I mean, it's not like, hey, I'm a bad dude and I'm just going to start sitting Chindis on people just because, I don't like them. It wasn't something that was done just frivolently. It was done, hey, let's you cross this guy that helped you, and something bad is going to happen to you.
Right.
And, and again, we've seen history is full of stories like this where it's like, look, you be a good person, you be honest, your word is your bond, and you'll get through life a lot better. When you double cross people, when you lie and you cheat and you steal, it comes back around. I mean, everybody's heard, this could be, hey, karma's going to get you. Hey, Chindi's going to get you.
Yeah, right.
But, I really dug this topic. And, And, Native American folklore, spirits, traditions are really, really fascinating to me. And,
me too.
I've got, a lot of Native American history in my own family. And so I think that draws me to it even more because I never really knew any of my family that had Native American blood. I know they were there, but they were back along my family tree where I wasn't old enough to have known them or met them, and so I love hearing this history.
Yep.
And I think it's just it's fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
It is. My great grandmother's grandmother was Native American, so that's I didn't meet her. That's quite a ways back. But like you, I've got some of it in my family, and that may be why I'm drawn to it as well. We've got a thing on our episode topic list that is just Native American legends. And it's something that we'll never fully cross off like we do the other ones because there's so many that Matt and I want to talk about and go over and everything. And we thought about this one for our Halloween bonus episode here just because of how dark in nature the Chindi really is and how terrifying having one set on you would be. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the Chindi are real and that they, that is a thing and that they can be harnessed for a medicine man's uses? Or do you think it's just legend and folklore? Let us know.
Yeah, and the best place to let us know is in our Facebook group. We've got pushing 5,000 members now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of great discussion happens. A lot of fun happens in there. And, if we've got some Native American members of the graveyard that we don't know, or if you've got, Native American family that's closer to you than Adam and mine is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let us know if you've got stories that go with this. You know, the stories of
they
the
would
Chindi.
be great for the Christmas episode if you have stories.
Yeah, that'd be a best thing. Send those kind of stories in because you know we want to hear them, and definitely if you've got a Chindi story, you know, share it with us and the rest of the group. But while you're tooling around on Facebook, you can slide over and check out our website. It's graveyardpodcast.com. And on our website, you can listen to the show. You can find out a little bit more about Adam and myself. You can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. I've got my 8-bit Skull Mike logo shirt on tonight.
It's a good-looking logo, man.
You can find the poster behind me. You can find our original, the Bloody Graveyard Tales logo. You can get it on everything from coffee mugs to posters, T-shirts, baby onesies, you name it.
Throw pillows.
throw pillows, exactly. But you can also become a patron, and as we've mentioned for you know, our $10 patrons, you get to see the video of Adam and I recording the show. You get to see our flubs. You get to see our retakes. You get to see us kind of goof around before we actually hit the record button, you know, for the audio version of the show that goes out. You know, so if you want to see that, you know, a $10 Patreon donation lets you see how we do things. But we thank everybody that donates to the show. Even $1 makes a difference. And we try to give you a little bit of perks. You know, we've got bonus episodes that don't necessarily coincide with the normal show topics that we do. We touch on a little other things. They're a lot more casual. They're not near as long, and you know, we have a lot of fun with it. You know, so if you've been on the fence, you know, hey, it's a good time to kind of, you know, jump in there. You're going to be helping out the show, keeping Adam and I going, but you're also going to get some pretty cool content as well.
Exactly.
Always, as I say, rate and review us on iTunes. It helps more people get to the graveyard. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I know Adam and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.
Hey, man, you're getting strong here lately. He's bringing it.
I went through all the crappy ones. I got to find some decent ones. Endocrinological. Yep. Problems or not.